The scream pierced through the quiet morning air as Eliza collapsed in the parking lot, her designer heels skidding across the wet asphalt. Blood seeped through her silk blouse, the same crimson as her lipstick, the same red as the Ferrari she'd arrived in. "I can't go," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as the world began to blur around her. "Not like this. Not today." If you're touched by stories of unexpected connections that change lives forever, hit that like button and subscribe now. This journey of two souls from different worlds will remind you why second chances matter and why kindness is the true measure of wealth. 20 minutes earlier, Jake Matthews had kissed his daughter goodbye at the school gates, promising to pick her up on time for once. "Pinky promise, Lillibug," the 7-year-old had asked, extending her tiny finger with solemn importance. "Pinky promise," Jake had replied, linking his oil-stained finger with hers. He watched her skip into the building, pigtails bouncing before checking his watch. He was already late opening the garage. But what was new? Single parenthood and punctuality rarely went hand in hand. The mechanic shop he owned, barely kept afloat these days, sat just 2 blocks from Westfield Elementary and 3 blocks from the city's most exclusive shopping district. It was a strange location, a working-class establishment wedged between worlds of privilege. Jake had inherited it from his father, who'd inherited it from his father before him. 3 generations of Matthews men with grease under their fingernails and honest work in their hearts. Jake was unlocking the garage door when he heard it, the unmistakable purr of a Ferrari engine, followed by the screech of brakes, and then silence. He didn't turn around. Rich people in their fancy cars were a common sight in this neighborhood, though they rarely stopped at his humble shop. Then came the scream. He spun around to see a woman crumpled on the ground beside a gleaming red Ferrari clutching her side. Without thinking, Jake ran toward her, his heart pounding against his ribs. Ma'am, can you hear me?" he called, kneeling beside her. Up close, everything about her screamed. Money, the perfectly highlighted hair, the manicured nails, the watch that probably cost more than his annual income. "I can't go," she whispered again, her eyes fluttering. "The meeting, my company. I can't." Jake noticed the blood spreading across her blouse. "You need a hospital now." "No hospitals," she protested weakly. "No time. The acquisition meeting is in an hour. Billions at stake." Jake almost laughed at the absurdity. "Lady, you're bleeding out in a parking lot. Whatever meeting you have can wait." Her eyes, a startling shade of green, suddenly focused on him with surprising clarity. "You don't understand. If I don't make that meeting, 2,000 people lose their jobs, including mine." Something in her voice, the raw determination beneath the pain, struck Jake. He recognized it. It was the same desperation he felt every month when bills piled up and Lily needed new shoes. "My car," Jake said, making a split-second decision. "It's not fancy, but it runs. Hospital first, then your meeting if the doctors clear you." She started to protest, but another wave of pain silenced her. Jake carefully helped her to her feet and guided her to his battered pickup truck parked behind the garage. "I'm Jake," he said, helping her into the passenger seat. "Eliza," she replied through gritted teeth. Eliza Harrington, the name registered vaguely in Jake's mind. He'd seen it in business magazines at the barber hop, associated with tech innovation and ruthless corporate takeovers. Eliza Harrington, 32-year-old self-made millionaire, CEO of Harrington Tech Solutions. As Jake pulled onto the road, he glanced at the woman beside him. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. "What happened to you anyway?" "Appendicitis, I think," she murmured. "Been ignoring the pain for days. Too busy." Jake shook his head. "No meeting is worth dying for." "Easy for you to say," she snapped, then immediately softened. "I'm sorry, that was uncalled for." "No, you're right," Jake replied, accelerating through a yellow light. "What would I know about high-stakes business? I'm just a mechanic trying to keep my shop from going under while raising a kid alone." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken understanding. Two people worlds apart, both fighting their own battles. "How old?" Eliza finally asked. "My daughter, 7. Name's Lily." Her mother, Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Cancer! 3 years ago." Eliza closed her eyes. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." The emergency room was crowded, but Eliza's condition and perhaps her expensive clothes got her immediate attention. Jake found himself pacing the waiting room, wondering why he was still there. He should be at the garage. He had appointments, bills to pay, a life that didn't include worrying about millionaire CEOs with appendicitis. Yet, he stayed. An hour later a nurse approached him. Mr. Matthews, Miss Harrington is asking for you. Jake followed the nurse to a small recovery room where Eliza lay in a hospital bed, looking smaller somehow without her power suit and commanding presence. They're prepping me for surgery, she said without preamble. Ruptured appendix. Could have killed me if I'd waited any longer. She paused, meeting his eyes. Thank you, Jake shrugged. Anyone would have done the same. No, Eliza said firmly. They wouldn't have. Most people in this city would have walked right past me, especially knowing who I am. I didn't know who you were, Jake admitted. Exactly. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. That's why I need to ask you a favor, a big one. Jake raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The meeting, it's at Westbrook Tower in 40 minutes. I need someone to go in my place to ask for a postponement, not a cancellation. They'll walk if it's canceled. Just buy me some time. Jake laughed, then realized she was serious. You want me, a mechanic with grease under his nails, to walk into a boardroom full of suits and represent you? Yes, Eliza said simply, because you'll tell the truth, and because I trust you. You don't even know me. I know enough. Her green eyes held his. You stopped for a stranger in distress. You put my needs above your own. That tells me everything important about your character. Jake ran a hand through his hair. This is crazy. Welcome to my world. Eliza reached for her purse and pulled out a business card and a small key. My assistant Marcus will meet you in the lobby. Show him this card. The key is to my briefcase in the Ferrari. There's a tablet inside with the presentation. Just tell them I'm in emergency surgery and need 24 hours. Jake took the card and key, feeling as though he'd stepped into someone else's life. And if they say no, Eliza's expression hardened. Then 2,000 people lose their livelihoods because a bunch of venture capitalists can't wait one day for a woman heavy. NG emergency surgery. Put that way, Jake couldn't refuse. I'll do my best. That's all I ask. As Jake turned to leave, Eliza called after him. Jake, the Ferrari keys are in my coat pocket. Take it. He stared at her. You want me to drive your Ferrari? It's faster than your truck, she said practically. And it might help with credibility when you arrive. Driving the Ferrari was like nothing Jake had ever experienced. The engine responded to the lightest touch, the leather seat cradling him like a lover. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to imagine a different life, one where he wasn't constantly worried about money, where Lily could have new shoes whenever she needed them, where his garage was thriving instead of barely surviving. Then reality intruded as he pulled up to Westbrook Tower, a gleaming monolith of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. The valet's eyes widened at the sight of Jake in his work clothes and boots emerging from Eliza's Ferrari. I'm here for the Rington meeting, Jake said, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. As promised, Marcus was waiting in the lobby, a slim man with wire-rimmed glasses who looked Jake up and down with barely concealed horror. Miss Harrington sent you? He asked incredulously. Jake handed him the business card. She's in emergency surgery, ruptured appendix. She asked me to request a 24-hour postponement. Marcus' professional demeanor reasserted itself. I see. Well, this is unexpected. But if Eliza trusts you, he gestured toward the elevator. Follow me, Mr. Matthews. Jake Matthews. The elevator whisked them to the 50th floor where a reception area led to a massive boardroom. Through the glass walls, Jake could see a dozen men and women in expensive suits, checking watches and scrolling through phones. Wait here, Marcus instructed, entering the room alone. Jake watched as Marcus spoke to the group, gesturing occasionally in his direction. Several heads turned to stare at him, expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disdain. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus emerged. They want to hear it from you, he said quietly. Directly, Jake swallowed hard. What do I say? The truth, Marcus replied, echoing Eliza's words. Just the truth. Heart pounding, Jake entered the boardroom. The conversation died immediately, all eyes turning to him. Gentlemen, ladies, Jake began, his voice steadier than he expected. My name is Jake Matthews. Eliza Harrington is currently in emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix. She asked me to come here and request a 24-hour postponement of this meeting. A silver-haired man at the head of the table leaned forward. And you are? I'm a mechanic. I own Matthews' Garage on Elm Street. Miss Harrington collapsed outside my shop this morning. Murmurs rippled through the room. The silver-haired man, clearly the leader, studied Jake with cold eyes. Mr. Matthews, do you know what this meeting is about? Jake shook his head. No, sir. I just know that M.S. Harrington said 2,000 jobs depend on it. Indeed. The man steepled his fingers. We're here to discuss the acquisition of Harrington Tech Solutions by Westbrook Industries. A deal worth billions that Miss Harrington has been fighting for months. Jake frowned. Fighting for or against? The question seemed to surprise the man. Against initially, but market pressures have forced her hand. Today was to be the final negotiation before signing. Something didn't add up. Why would Eliza be so desperate to attend a meeting to sell her company when she'd been fighting against it? Jake thought of the determination in her eyes, the way she'd said 2,000 people lose their jobs. "Sir," Jake said slowly, "I don't know much about business, but I know people. And I know that Eliza Harrington was willing to risk her life to be here today. Not to surrender, but to fight for those 2,000 employees." The room fell silent. The silver-haired man's expression was unreadable. "You seem very certain of Miss Harrington's INTIERs for someone who just met her this morning." Jake met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes you learn more about a person in a moment of crisis than in years of casual acquaintance." A woman at the far end of the table suddenly laughed. "He's got you there, Richard." She turned to Jake. "I'm Victoria Westbrook. This is my father, Richard Westbrook. And you're right, Eliza wasn't coming here to surrender. She was coming with a counteroffer." Richard Westbrook's jaw tightened. "Victoria." "No, Dad. I'm tired of the games." Victoria stood, addressing the room. "Eliza Harrington built her company from nothing. She's created more innovation in 5 years than Westbrook has in 20. We shouldn't be acquiring her. We should be partnering with her." Jake watched the power dynamics shift in the room, feeling like an observer in a play he didn't fully understand. Richard Westbrook's expression darkened. "This is hardly the time or place." "Actually," Jake interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. "It's CMS like exactly the time and place. Miss Harrington risked her life to be here today. The least you can do is wait 24 hours to hear what she has to say." The room fell silent again. Then, unexpectedly, Richard Westbrook smiled, a small, tight smile, but genuine nonetheless. "You're either very brave or very foolish, Mr. Matthews." He glanced around the table. "All in favor of postponing until tomorrow afternoon?" Hands rose around the table. Victoria Westbrook's was the first up, her eyes twinkling with something like approval as she looked at Jake. "Motion carried," Richard announced. "We reconvene tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please extend our well wishes to Miss Harrington for a speedy recovery." As the meeting dispersed, Victoria approached Jake. "That was quite something, Mr. Matthews. Not many people stand up to my father like that." Jake shrugged. "I was just keeping a promise." "Well, your promise may have just saved Harrington Tech Solutions." She handed him her card. "If you ever decide you want more than being a mechanic, give me a call." Jake pocketed the card with a polite nod, but knew he would never use it. His place was at his garage with his tools and his daughter, not in this world of glass towers and power plays. When Jake returned to the hospital, he found Eliza awake and alert, though clearly still recovering from surgery. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. Jake recounted the meeting, watching her expression shift from anxiety to relief to something like wonder. "You stood up to Richard Westbrook?" she asked incredulously. "The Richard Westbrook? I just told the truth," Jake said simply. "Meeting's postponed until tomorrow afternoon, and I think Victoria Westbrook is on your side." Eliza leaned back against her pillows, processing this information. "Victoria's been trying to modernize Westbrook Industries for years. Her father resists change at every turn." She looked at Jake with new respect. "You may have just changed the course of both our companies." Jake shrugged. "Just keep it. Keeping my promise. Like I promised my daughter I'd pick her up on time today." He checked his watch. "Which means I should go." "Wait," Eliza said, reaching for his hand. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need. Anyone would have done the same. We both know that's not true." Her green eyes held his. "Let me help you with your garage. An investment, not charity." Jake stiffened. "I don't need handouts." "It's not a handout. It's good business." Eliza's voice was firm. "Your garage is in a prime location. With the right equipment and marketing, you could specialize in luxury cars. There's a shortage of honest mechanics who understand high-end vehicles." The idea took hold in Jake's mind despite his resistance. He thought of Lily, of the stability such a business could provide her. "I'll think about it," he conceded. Eliza smiled. "That's all I ask." She hesitated, then added, "And maybe you could bring Lily to visit sometime. I'd like to meet her." The request surprised Jake. "Why?" "Because," Eliza said softly, "Today reminded me that there's more to life than boardrooms and balance sheets. I'd like to know the little girl whose father keeps his promises, even to strangers." 6 months later, Matthews Luxury Auto Service opened its doors, a state-of-the-art facility specializing in high performance and luxury vehicles. Jake remained the owner and head mechanic, but now employed 3 additional technicians and an office manager. Eliza had been true to her word. It was an investment, not charity. She owned 30% of the business but left the day-to-day operations entirely to Jake. Her counter-offer to Westbrook Industries had succeeded, resulting in a partnership rather than an acquisition, with Victoria Westbrook playing a key role in the new joint venture. But the most significant change wasn't professional. It was personal. What had begun as an unlikely encounter between two worlds had blossomed into something neither Jake nor Eliza had expected. They were taking it slow, mindful of Lily's feelings and the complexities of their different lives, but there was no denying the connection between them. On the day of the grand opening, as Lily proudly cut the ribbon in front of the new garage, Jake caught Eliza's eye across the crowd. She smiled, not the polished professional smile,